Welcome to Her Playbook. I'm Madeline Burke, joined this week by Giant Scout Hannah Burnett. First of all, you're working with the New York Football Giants as the first female full-time scout on this scouting staff. How does someone go from graduating at UMass in 2018 to being a trailblazer as a full-time scout? How did that journey come about?
Yeah, so I started out as an intern, which I think a lot of people in this industry kind of start out as. So I was with the Buffalo Bills, and I was an intern with them, just a training camp intern. So I did that in between my junior and senior year at UMass. So did that over the summer, and then like everybody else, I just kind of looked for internships, and I just applied to all these different places and ended up landing with the NFL League office in New York City. And being from New York, it was awesome. So I got to be home for a little bit after college, and commuting in and out from Long Island to New York City every day, doing the grind. So I was there for 7 months as a player personnel assistant. And then, when I was there, I tried to network. I went out to the Jets, I went out to the Giants, and met some people and just kind of learned about scouting and figured out that's kind of what I wanted to do, and got on with the Atlanta Falcons for 2 years and was a scouting assistant and coordinator with them. And, one thing led to another, and lucky enough to be here and have the opportunity to be a college scout, which is really once I got that foundation and figured out which way I wanted to go, that was the dream job. So it's been awesome.
Now, a lot of times, you'll hear from these armchair quarterbacks or fans at home who will say, well, this person's never played the game at a pro level. This person can't know how to scout or how to evaluate talent. But there are a lot of people, male and female, who never played pro football or college football and can still see that. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I always say that gender doesn't define your knowledge for football. I feel very strongly about that. I just think that if you work hard, and if I'm working just as hard or harder than somebody else, why can't I get the knowledge that they have, And so that's the way that I look at it. Even though I didn't play the game, you know what? It doesn't matter. If I continue to work harder than the person next to me, then I can gain the knowledge that they have and maybe even gain a little bit more.
How much scheme do you have to know to be able to evaluate these college prospects?
Yeah, I would say that, you want a good foundation. So you want to know what kind of defense they're running, what kind of offense they're running, and know the basics. I think a lot of times we are required to know the basics, and it's better to know a little bit more. So, hey, why are they running this? And a lot of times we get that information from talking to coaches. We talk to sources, and hey, we're talking about a player. Why was he doing this when you were in this defense? Oh, that's his responsibility. So it gives us a better idea. Okay, he knows what he's doing. That was what his assignment was.
Right.
So we can learn a little bit more from just digging in. And that all comes to the background piece, knowing your player and knowing who he is and what his responsibilities are.
Well, it's got to be challenging too, right? Because there are so many, schemes that have such variations that you could say this looks kind of like this, but is that his job or is this his job? And when you're not as familiar with what exactly the player's supposed to be doing, is there a body language tell? Is there something that you see that it looks like, okay, this is him kind of scrambling here? Or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, offense and defense, you kind of, especially the quarterback position, right? If he's scrambling, if he's making plays on his own, you can kind of tell that. I think a lot of times on the defensive side of the ball, it's harder to tell. And what we like to grade are instincts, right? How instinctive is the player? Is he doing his assignment? Does he know what he's doing? Can he feel that there's somebody behind him? Can he read the front? Can he make a play? Can he track the ball? All those little things. So we put together and we call it instincts. And so I think that for me is the best telltale of somebody. If they're instinctive, that's the guy that you want on your team.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of times it is, like I said, the digging and, hey, what was his responsibility in this play? And a lot of times when we talk to the guys and we talk to the coaches, that's when we figure all that stuff out.
Now, a lot of, when you're scouting and compiling this information, I understand there's a bit of a shorthand involved as well. And I know that different coaching staffs or different organizations have different ways in approaching this. But, when in your time with Atlanta and your time with the Giants, is there a different way in which they record information or collaborate information, and how do you learn the same language essentially?
Yeah, so we kind of call it the scouting manual, and every team has one. Mm-hmm. And so every team does it a little bit differently. And so coming from the Falcons, they did it differently over there. We do it differently, and with regime changes and all that stuff, it all becomes a little bit different. But it is speaking a different language, but it's kind of the same foundation. Right. You know what you're looking for. You're looking for smart, instinctive, fast players, right? Everybody wants that. So you kind of have those, what we call critical factors, and it's going to be the same for every position. And so we kind of base everything off of what those critical factors are, and we want guys that represent that. But yeah, it is different throughout every team. Every team does it differently, and I wouldn't say there's one correct way of doing it. It's just learning the way that our boss wants us to do it.
Is it ever intimidating walking into a room with people who've been doing this for decades and things like that? Or is there ever kind of a, oh, wow, this is the moment? Or how has that experience been for you?
Yeah, I think the first, and I think anybody will say this, like, it's exciting. Like, I love the guys. I love being around them. Obviously, I love everybody that's in this organization. So I just kind of looking at it as like a learning experience, and taking different tendencies from all of our scouts, taking tendencies from our directors, from Joe, from Brandon, from everybody, and just listening to the way that people present and talk, and being like, hey, I like the way that he does that, and so maybe I can take a little bit from there. Or hey, I like the way that he's talking about this player in this way. So I'm just trying to absorb as much as I can, and then kind of create myself and do the best that I can in my presentations and everything like that.
Now, as a college scout, how do you describe what you go through and the different territories that you cover, and what the job looks like in the meat of the season?
Yeah, so a lot of what we're doing is we're spending a lot of times in hotels, on flights. It's a huge travel job, and most of our travel is happening in the fall. So a lot of times what we're doing is I'm building my schedule out in the summers. So we're going in, we're visiting with the coaches, we're watching practice, we're watching film while we're at the school. So all of that is where we kind of gather the information, and we're talking to all the different sources out there at the colleges, and then on Saturday we'll hit a game and then just kind of do it again throughout the week. But that's where we're gathering all of our info, and then when I'm getting home in my hotel room, I'm writing up my guys. So if I've watched film or maybe I need a couple more games, I watched a couple games, and then I'm typing up my evaluations and submitting them through our system, and just rinse and repeat.
Wow. So when you're setting your schedule in the summer, are there players or prospects that, the GM or the staff will say, hey, we want you to look out for these people? Or do you say, these are some guys that I'm interested in? Or is there a balance of both?
I'm required to watch all the positions. So there's nothing really like anybody specific that we need to watch. It's really anyone that has playing time that's going to be draft eligible for next year. And then any juniors that we're hearing, hey, they might declare for the draft this year. We definitely want to get in there and make sure that if we can get some information on them and watch some film, and then when they do declare, we're a little bit ahead of the curve. So it's really like anybody that's ready for this year's draft, and then the following year kind of do the same thing. So that's the way that it goes.
Is there ever a situation in which you've planned to go to this game, but somebody else that you didn't expect is really kind of showing up and you need to see them again? And how malleable is that schedule?
Yeah, it changes all the time. It's crazy. You just have to be flexible and just go with the flow. And we're in constant communication with our directors and our regional guys to make sure that we're not overlapping or we're not in there at the same time. And it's constant communication and just being able to kind of think on your feet and just go with the flow.
Yeah. Well, and I'd imagine with the amount of travel and moving around and games that you're seeing, that you've got a lot of memorable stories. Yeah. Is there one moment that comes to mind that you're like, this signifies what it is to be a scout, and is like, okay, that happened?
Yeah, I would say we always just say, don't let the weather beat you. I was driving home from the long drive from Nebraska to Colorado, and it's just flat, open fields, and I got caught in a lightning storm, which was a little insane. So I was driving through, and it started to get dark out, and then all this lightning's just popping down all around me. So that was fun. It pulled over, stayed under an overpass for an hour, but I'm like, that's letting the weather beat you. And because I didn't look at the forecast, I didn't know. So that's kind of day in the life.
Day in the life.
It's whether it's a flat tire, whether your car is getting towed, it's always something. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, because outwardly people will be like, oh, that's so glamorous. You get to watch football for a living. Right. And you're like, there's more to it than that.
A lot more to it, yeah.
Now, when you look at, I'm sure there are a lot of young people that look to you and say, hey, how do I get to where you are? How do I build to where you are? What advice would you give to somebody who says, or who listens or watches this and says, I want to be a scout. How do I even get started?
Yeah. For me, having the base of playing sport was awesome, and I'm not saying you have to play sport, but just being involved in it in some way. So if you're in college, get involved with the soccer team, get involved with the football team if you can, if that's the area that you want to go into. Just get involved in some capacity. They're always looking for help. They want volunteers, and you have to start as low as you can. And whether you're not getting paid or you're making minimum wage, all of us have done it. We've all had to go that route, and it's just, you have to pay your dues, you have to do all that stuff. So I think that just trying to find an internship or an volunteer opportunity, and then once you get your foot in the door, making the most of it. You have to be the first in, you have to be the last out. You have to make a good impression. You want to walk away from the internship and them saying, hey, that was the best intern that we've ever had. So that's kind of the way that I look at it.
Yeah, and it's almost like no job is too small, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great advice.
Yeah.